In 2014, Solo had 1,645 veteran contacts. So far, through the end of June, we've had 1,096. We have clients from as far away as Florence, Brookings, from Charleston over to Bridge. Our office is open Monday through Friday from 9:30 to 4, Saturdays and Sundays and after hours by appointments. If the veteran cannot come to us, we will go to them. Our VSOs are accredited and sponsored by the Marine Corps League. We have a table back in the corner with information both about Solo and the Marine Corps League. We work closely with Eric Gleason, who is the County Veteran Service Officer. We also work with ORCA, Oregon Coast Community Action, with Hospice, with Point Man Ministries, with SCAVAN, which is the South Coast Area Veterans Network. We assist the veterans by helping them file claims, doing paperwork, lots of paperwork. Some of our veterans are very stressed, some of them are very angry. We have a non-confrontational office atmosphere for them. We always have coffee and water available. We assist them by helping them file claims, by getting their military records, by getting medical records. We've assisted some of them to get in getting birth certificates, because now in Oregon you can't renew your driver's license without the birth certificate. We have an office that is dedicated for the veterans' use. There's a computer, there's phones, a copy machine. And we also let our homeless veterans in the area use our mailing address for mail, so they have a safe place that they can receive mail. On Fridays, there's a representative from the Oregon Employment Department that comes into our office, who is the Veterans Outreach Officer for that organization, and he assists the veterans with looking for work or getting VA benefits to get trained for jobs and that.
Hi folks, how is everyone? Good. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
All right. We're pretty used to this, so hopefully you can hear us in the back too. I'm Copitka, this is Loma, and we are the Liberators. We've been around for a little over 10, 11 years now. When I moved to Oregon back in 2002, I decided to get out of politics and activism and all that kind of stuff. I had done it for nearly 40 years, and then all of a sudden I met this woman and things changed again. So I blame her for everything.
I am Loma Wharton. I'm a hairdresser. I'm a grandmother. I do have one of my grandchildren with me tonight. She's my 14-year-old Mackenzie. She's your timer, or today, excuse me. I'm here because of my father, Charles Valetti. He's a late Battle of the Bulge, World War II veteran. I'm here because I got tired of listening to my dad tell me how bad my government was. So I said to him one day, I says, okay, Daddy, I'm going to prove you wrong. Tell me where to start. And I will never forget the grin on his face that day. And he told me to start with the Council on Foreign Relations, who they are and what they do and where the money goes. And not only did I prove my dad right, I proved him absolutely right. And as Ray said, my brother and I started this organization back in 2004. We presented to the county commissioners the fraud being conducted in the notices of federal tax liens being attached in the lien index, and the rest has been history. We've moved on to what we're doing now, and that is the subject of land and how to take our land back legally, lawfully, ethically, and morally, locally.
We've been educating folks for a little over, like I say, 9, 10 years. And when we saw Agenda 21 on the list, it's like, oh my God, we've got to think back to 7 years ago when we were doing this. And I'm going to say something that's probably going to shock most of you in here, and that's that Agenda 21 is a brilliant plan for what it was devised for. The intention of Agenda 21 was to be used specifically and only for major metropolitan areas. And in those areas, it would have been an ideal program to use. Then, ICLEI and the United Nations got a hold of it, and they decided, oh, we'll apply this to the rest of the country. Because what it does is it allows them, through unauthorized acts, to come after our private property. And without private property, we have neither liberty nor freedom. That is one of our most important things, and something that we all must remember, is that without property and property rights, we lose our liberties and freedoms. So by giving them the ability to come in and take over under administrative acts and regulations, and because we don't know the difference or how to go about correcting it, it has been an ongoing siege. And it's gotten so big that most people today are like, oh my God, where do I start? What do I do? Is it too late? And it's not. One of the things we've been focusing on for the last 3 years is solutions. One of the biggest solutions, and we brought the first folks here, both Ken Ivory and Doyle Shamley from Arizona County. In 2002, we had a conference in Reno, Nevada. We invited county commissioners from across the western states, and county attorneys, anybody who wanted to come, sheriffs, and we had over 55 people at the conference. Here's the thing that we have to understand, folks. How many of you understand jurisdiction? Okay. How many of you understand power and authority? Okay. Here's the difference. We only have, as far as the government, a very limited amount of authority. Authority does not grow with numbers. It is finite. It's limited. It's spelled out. Power, on the other hand, does grow in numbers, and intimidation, and threat. Well, Loma and I decided years ago that what good is our stuff if we don't have liberty and freedom? They've tried to shut us up. We refuse. So as we got to looking at the whole quagmire of what was going on, we realized that the lands issues were probably the most important, especially to us here in the western states, because it controls us from a fundamental level, and that's our life, liberty, and prosperity. We gain the majority of our income in the western states from our natural resources, and if we're not able to work those natural resources, it affects us on such primary levels across the board. It touches everyone. Everyone. And so we've made that our focus. And it's really very simple. I didn't say it was easy, but I will say that it is simple. Recently, the Western Governors Association came out with their resolution to take back public lands from the federal government. So has the Republican National Committee and many, many other organizations. The Oregon Association of Counties has passed their resolution. A couple of counties have passed their resolutions, but nothing's being done about it. How many of you recently saw in the newspaper where Governor Kitzhaber declared a state of emergency and brought the National Guard in as a possibility to fight the forest fires? Okay, good. So now you know. He's done that. Unfortunately, it was unnecessary, but because of the lack of intelligence on our elected officials' parts to understand their jurisdiction and authority in the matter of land management, we've had to call in the National Guard. It was absolutely unnecessary had we done our job and asserted our authority and our jurisdiction over the matter. I want to make one thing perfectly clear, and we know this is fact. And I challenge you to prove anything that we say up here wrong, all right? We'll be the first ones to admit and apologize. They do not own the federal lands. The federal government does not own the federal lands, never has owned the federal lands, cannot own the federal lands, period. They are janitors. They are a land management company through their agencies that have limited authority. And in every one of those agencies' contracts, it states that they shall coordinate with the counties. Nowhere will you find where it says that the counties shall coordinate with the agencies. And it's because the legislators knew where the authority lies, and it's with the counties. And the counties have last say, but they don't have the guts to do it. Our elected officials have become so beaten down and so afraid of changing it to a capacity that would allow us to grow and flourish because they've become codependent on federal funds and federal monies.
That's right.
We would make a minimum of 10 times our federal welfare payments if we could work our natural resources in every one of Oregon's counties. And in some counties, it would be as high as 30 times because of the wealth in those counties. Now, what do? How do we change it? How do we get them to do it? Well, the first thing is to start holding your elected officials accountable. Whether that mean recall, or showing up and getting in their face, politely of course, okay, with all of the legal documentation, and I'm going to tell you where to get that information so that you can take it to them and ask them to refute. Every county we've presented to, we've asked them to refute, and they have been unable to. So now that they've been put on notice, the next step is holding them accountable, and that's either through recall or suit. Now everybody we talk to says, we can't sue, we don't have the money to hire an attorney. Well, guess what? You don't need it. There are plenty of legal foundations out there that are taking these cases and winning them, okay? Look at what is it, Oyster Bay? Look at Oyster Bay, they just won. The Ninth Circuit just came down a year and a half ago in favor of land ownership and land management on our part. They did away with the, what was it again? The sue and settle. They did away with sue and settle. They found collusion between the government agencies and the environmentalists. We're asking them to enforce the law. If they don't, then they're complicit in an act against us. And we have to remember that we're the boss, not them. We're the parent of government. We're not the children. But until we grow a pair to realize that, our kids are going to continue to run roughshod over us. And how many of us have seen that with our neighbors, our family members? Sometimes it takes tough love. Sometimes it takes being willing to risk everything. I made a commitment 5 years ago. And it kind of happened to me 7 years ago. I lost everything. And I mean everything. Literally. I was sitting there one day and I was wondering, why did this happen? And I hear this voice. It says, you asked for it. I'm like, what? And I mean everything, folks. Okay? And it said it again. And it's because I had prayed to remove everything from my path that was getting in the way of my divine path. The path that God wanted me to follow. But be careful what you wish for. So now I have nothing to fear. I have nothing to lose. and neither does Loma. And until we get to that point, it makes it very difficult for us to really speak to the truth to those that we see as being in power. And we've got to stop that, because they're not in power, they're in service. They are not in power, they are in service to you and you and you and every other one of you in here. And it is time that we remind them. AmericanLandsCouncil.org. I want you to remember this. AmericanLandsCouncil.org. Okay? You can go online. It is Representative Ken Ivory, along with Bill Howe, Bill Red, Doyle Shamley from Arizona County, Arizona, who they've done this successfully. Otero County, New Mexico, they've done it successfully. You'll hear all kinds of excuses from your county attorneys and your county commissioners of why it can't be done and how it's not being done in those counties. I can assure you that it is. And do your own due diligence so that you can overcome anything that they have to throw at you. Representative Ivory has been doing a phenomenal job. We have information over here on our table, also our cards for Liberators, if you would like to come to one of our meetings. We'll come to you. We'll come and speak anywhere. The only thing that we ask is if you can, give us gas money. That's all. We never charge. Maybe feed us. Depending on how long you want us for. We have got to change our own mentality. This is our fault. My fault. I admit it. I got complacent for a while. Heck, I was stupid for 10 years. I didn't realize it.
She was a Democrat.
I was a Democrat. What can I say? Hey, but this was in Texas and I was a yellow dog Democrat. Very different from an Oregon Democrat, let me tell you. We've all been there. But realizing that we have the authority, that we are the creators of government, that they are not in power, they are in service, and acting like it is the only thing that's going to change it. And the only way that we can change it all the way to the top is to work right here in our own backyards. It cannot be done any other way. It is too daunting and too large of a task. But as soon as your counties are handled, and they're doing the right thing, and they're asserting their authority in a fashion that is conducive to the people, that is conducive to their limitations, then we will grow and prosper. We will see liberty and prosperity again. And
good morning. My name is Runyan. I'm running for State Representative, House District 9. Kenny McEwen is the New State Representative incumbent. I'm here today to talk briefly on Common Core. The Common Core state standards, how they're referring to them as state standards. They're actually federal mandated standards from the Department of Education at the federal level. Does anybody here know the name Dr. Duke Pesta? Has anybody heard of the name Dr. Duke Pesta? Dr. Duke Pesta is a professor at the University of Wisconsin who is adamantly, fervently against Common Core standards. Dr. Duke Pesta can be found online. He has YouTube videos. You just need to type in that name, Duke Pesta, and there they are. Common Core standards are not state standards. They're federally mandated curriculum designed by government bureaucrats and lobbyists and school board members. They're funded by progressive millionaires and billionaires, particularly the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. If anybody's heard of that, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, they're pumping millions of dollars into Common Core. When implemented by each individual state, they're basically held hostage by the federal government to enforce this curriculum because of the millions of dollars provided by the federal government. When the state accepts that money, they're to be held to it, basically held accountable by the federal government, not to swing away from those standards that they accepted. No debate, no voter input, no parental insight was ever considered by the states that brought in Common Core by by allowing Common Core to come into the state for a curriculum in each school district. 2014, this year, 2014 is when Oregon fully implements Common Core. The past 3 years, Common Core has been half implemented. Half of the curriculum was state standards, Oregon state standards, half of it was Common Core. Teachers are not being permitted the freedom to teach the students. They're having their freedom taken away, their openness, the way that they know how to teach, the way that they learn how to teach is being taken away from them. There's a term called TAG, that is talented and gifted. Talented and gifted students are no longer allowed in the classroom. They're basically going to be, what it does, you are put into a box, a one-size-fits-all box. And there's no room to go outside this box. You learn inside this box. If you are not as fast as your other classmates, if you are not as intelligent as your other classmates, if you are struggling in one subject, such as math or reading, there's no challenging for the other students that are higher in those areas. The answer to pushing this away from our children from designing a curriculum by the state is nullification. Each state has to nullify, and that's what a lot of states have been doing, particularly Oklahoma. Louisiana is working on nullification currently. Wisconsin is going to be starting nullification currently. Governor Scott Walker has mentioned that he's going to get the legislature to create legislation to nullify Common Core in the state of Wisconsin. States that have not implemented it so far, the state of Texas, the state of Oklahoma nullified it, the state of Minnesota has not implemented it, the state of Virginia has not implemented it, and I believe there's 1 or 2 other states that do not have it implemented. Every other state has it fully implemented, including Oregon this year. Teachers are fearful of their careers. They're extremely fearful of their careers. They're going to be blacklisted and never hireable again to be able to teach. According to a school board member, or a superintendent, excuse me, a superintendent from Powell School District held a state district meeting, announced that anyone who is against the Common Core needed to come to him so he could help them find a job outside the school district. That's highly disturbing. Some of the examples of what's going on with Common Core, how they're changing the way that children from kindergarten through 12th grade are learning. They're changing the language. In math, the old language, word problem. We all know, we've all been there. We know what a word problem is. That's now called a math situation. Carry the 1. That's now called regroup 10 ones as a 10. Borrow. Take a 10 and regroup as 10 ones. Add. Increase. Subtract is now decrease. And more than and less than is called compare. And the question, how do you know that you have the problem right, is evidence. Do you have the evidence? Another example, I wish I had a whiteboard. If I had a whiteboard, I'd be able to write these examples up so everybody can see. But if everybody can see right here, the math problem 62 plus 26, 88. That's pretty simple. Well, a new way, you take 60 plus 2 to 20 plus 6, and then you add 60 plus 20 gets you 80, then you add 8 to 80 to give you 88. I don't quite understand why that's necessary, but according to the federal government it is. Number line strategy. 53 minus 26 equals 27. Well, now you have to add about 2 or 3 other steps to that to make a number line and to draw out different sequencing of numbers, 10 plus 10 plus 4 plus 3, to give you 27. And a comment, this was on I wrote this off, you can go online to find this, but they wrote on this, it's an assignment page, you take home assignment or homework assignment, it says, a good thinker will notice there are not enough ones in 53 to take away 6. So the place value strategy won't work easily. Use a number line to count the difference in chunks. I'm not very thrilled with how they phrase this. They're calling students a good thinker. Well, if you're not a good thinker, you're not going to be able to figure this out. So students who are struggling in math are not going to be able to figure this out, apparently. Teachers are not figuring this out. Teachers don't understand how to teach this curriculum. There are several teachers that I know that are having a very hard time because they're getting information from the state with how they're supposed to lay out their classrooms and lay out the curriculum, and they don't know how to do it. They don't know how to do it. Another example is place value strategy. The number 67 minus 43 equals 24. So you're supposed to take 60 minus 40 to get 20, and then 7 minus 3 to get 4. So 20 plus 4 is 24. Subtract the tens. 60 minus 40 equals 20. Since you have enough 1s and 67, you can take the 3 away easily. Put the 1s and 10s together, 20 plus 4 equals 24. I don't understand why that's necessary. Another example that this was starting before Common Core was ever brought up from the federal government was in 1994. A teacher who wrote a letter to a parent. The name of the student was, the name of the teacher was Adam Hilliger. I don't know the name of the student, I don't know the name of the student's father, but the teacher wrote, "You may already know this, but in case Alex has neglected to tell you, I am assigning him to detention for 1 hour this Friday, April 22nd. The reason is as follows. Alex consistently defied me during class. He contradicted me numerous times when I insisted that the length of 1 kilometer was greater than the length of 1 mile. Every other student in class accepted my lesson without argument, but your son refused to believe what I told him, offering such rebuttals as you're lying to the class and commanding other students to challenge my curriculum. Although he was correct, Alex's actions show a blatant disregard for authority and a complete lack of respect for his school. In the future, Alex would be better off simply accepting my teachings without resistance. Please see to it that your son understands this." I'm sorry, if that was my son, I would be going to school and I would have a very, very strong word with this teacher.
Absolutely.
Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
.com. Many of us are very aware of it. He has a presence all the way across the country. He's national now. And the writers he has are extremely varied, and they're completely knowledgeable across the board of what's going on in America, what America's problems are. And Paul is very careful to make sure that these words get out. Paul, please come on up.
Thank you very much for inviting me. My name is Paul Walter, and I'm the editor of MusicNews.com. And those of you who don't know, I was born in a communist country. And we immigrated to the United States illegally, by the way, through Ellis Island, New York, in 1959. And I remember when I got off the boat, I was at awe that you can be anything you wanted to be in this country as long as you're willing to work hard. Because in the communist country where I came from, government decided your future for you. Here they call it Common Core. Basically what it is the gentleman back there was asking how you defeat Common Core. It's really very simple. You run for school board, and you make, because the Liberals run for school board, and they rubber stamp Common Core, so we have to get decent people on the school board like we did in Josephine County Three Rivers School District, and there is no Common Core because the school board, which is about, I think, 4 out of 5 are conservative, and they say no. There's only one liberal on it, and of course they vote yes. And that's how you get rid of Common Core. Now, most of you are aware that you're losing your country. And the reason you're losing your country is because we haven't been doing our homework and we elected the wrong people to office. Now there's two kinds of wrong people that run for office. Those who know what they're doing and those who think they know what they're doing. And those who really know what they're doing, they'll never get elected because they're called radicals. And those who think they know what they're doing, they're called compromisers. In other words, they call them rhinos, which are nothing but Democrats in a Republican suit, which is like wolf in sheep's clothing. And they infiltrate the Republican Party, and they're nothing but a bunch of compromisers. We all need to get along, we need to compromise, everything is shaded gray to them. They will not take a stand, because if you take a stand, you're going to offend somebody. And we're in a position in this country that we cannot afford to do any more compromising, because we've just about lost everything. You compromise a few more compromises and you'll be living on your knees with a boot on your face, called the New World Order. Now, I was telling my wife, we was born in Denmark, and I was born in Yugoslavia, that we may have to get out of this country and go to Europe. It's getting pretty bad here. And then I'm thinking about this. And my wife said to me, you know, he says, it's even worse there. And I said, you're right, we can't take our guns with us. We can't take our stuff that we have here with us. So, and there is no other America in this world. Africa is not going to save the world from a New World Order. South America is not going to save the world from a New World Order. China or Russia won't either. Europe is all socialist, so the only thing that's left in this world is America. And I'll tell you something, this country is worth fighting for. I love America. I'm sorry, every time I talk about America, I get choked up, because everything that I have, America gave me. And I owe a lot to this country. And the only way you're going to take America back is to run for office. I know some of you are here in the 60s and 70s. I'm 69 years old. And I'm not going to give up. Because the only choice I have is to live on my knees with a boot on my face, and I'm not going to do that. So, the Bible, I don't know, I believe in the Bible. It says you have to take a stand against evil, and evil will flee. But the problem we have in America today is the pastors. Most of them are spineless. Gutless wonders is what most of them are. Come from seminary schools, and we published this book called The Coming Battle. Was written in 1899. A book was accidentally fell into my hands. Of course, it's public domain, that's why we printed it. And it tells you how European socialists took over this country, how the seminary schools have been infiltrated with European socialists, and that's why you have pastors coming out, they're cranking out these socialists, all they are in Jesus business. It's a 501c3 corporation, and they're in Jesus business. Just like you're in a furniture business or a carpentry business, they're in Jesus business. They're not in a business to, if we can wake the pastors up in this country, we'll save the country. If you understand about the Black Robe Regiment, when King George was here, and you spoke up against the government, you wound up in a shackle in Town Square to be mocked. So what they decided to do, well, we're not going to take this. And they stood up to King George, and you know about the Boston Tea Party. The only reason the Boston Tea Party was there, because that was a percentage of tax on the tea. And they knew once you give them 1%, you give 5 years down the road, it'd be 10%, 20%, there's no end. So they stood up to King George, and you know the story. We won. And how many people did we won in this country? We're only about, what, 2-3%? The rest didn't want to get involved. You know, we're too happy with King George has given us this, and King George has given us that, and when King George can give you something, King George can take it away. But when you win your country, nobody can take it away because you're the owner. And the only way you're going to save this country, if you people run for office. The house was not built from the roof down, it was built from the foundation up, and the foundation of this country is your cities and your counties. And I know a lot of people throughout this country that are in the 70s, and early 80s, and they run for office because they have no choice, because they want to leave a country for their grandkids and their children. So you have to run for office, even though, and run for county commissioner, and if you don't make it, brush yourself off and try it again. I ran 6 times in Josephine County. Of course, I never made it because I'm too outspoken, and the people are scared of that of me. They think I'm gonna tear the place down, and that's not true. I wouldn't do anything of the kind. But anyway, I made some notes for myself, so I'm gonna skip around a little bit because I never come with speeches prepared in my mind, you know, to read. I just speak from my heart. And that's the way I like it. Now, how is the New World Order being formed? And what is communism? If you understand your history, the Roman Empire was a fascist power. Egypt was a communist power. And what communism basically is, from cradle to grave government. They're going to give you clean needles, they're going to give you clean condoms, they're going to give you welfare, all at the expense of the taxpayers, of course. They buy the votes. Now your borders are open and they're coming across you by the tons from mid-Central America. And who pays for all this? You do. And Obama got I mean, I understand what Obama fooled you once. But I just can't see for the life of me how he can fool the people twice. This guy is a pure Marxist. And people say he doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, yes, he does. He said he's going to transform America, and he's done just that. He kept his word. Now, in Josephine County, what we're doing, we're recalling Cheryl Walker, county commissioner, and you have to do that here. If you got a bad commissioner. Someone mentioned here earlier that you got some lady here that's another Marxist. Recall her. Get a bunch of people together and start recalling them. And if you don't make it,
She just won the election.
That you make it. Cheryl Walker in Josephine County tried to create a code enforcement police thing. And guess what? The Republican Central Committee of Josephine County endorsed the recall. You know how they done it? The 60-40 vote. Because a lot of conservatives ran for precinct captains. And then when the vote came in, obviously 60% of the people who voted were conservatives, so they voted to recall them. The other 40% are basically Democrats and Republicans clothing. And that's how you're going to fix your country. You have to get a backbone, you have to take a stand. And don't worry about whether you get mocked, because you're going to get, the newspapers are all going to be on the side of the crooks in the courthouse. They're not going to be on your side. It's the same in Josephine County. Okay, I talked about Common Core. And Common Core has been around, like according to Charlotte Isabey. Charlotte Isabey, by the way, is one of our writers. She's been writing for us for the past 15 years. She was, by the way, those who don't know, was Ronald Reagan's National Policy Advisor under education. She was in Ronald Reagan's cabinet. And she's a whistleblower. And she told me the other day that Common Core has been around since the 50s. Under a different name, of course. It's called Goals 2000. That's Common Core. Outcome-based education, that's Common Core. So what they do, what these crooks do, is it's like global warming. Once people catch on that there's no such thing as global warming, then they rename it to called climate change. But it's all the same. To fool the people. And it works. If it didn't work, they wouldn't do it. That's right. And only way that we're going to save this country is by people like you. And I always tell you, when you run for office, don't ever get mad, don't get angry, stand firm what you believe in. Run for school board, run for county commissioner, run for city council, whatever you can get in, how you can get in, you get in. And kiss babies and lie like hell until you get elected. When you get elected, then let the real you come out. Because if you tell the truth in the beginning, you'll never get elected. Unless, of course, you're a rhino. You know, rubber stamp, never met a taxi with a rubber stamp, of course. And see, as I was saying before, that most people don't know what they're doing. if you run for office and I can convince you, and you're new in town, you just moved to Coos County, and I can convince you that the speed limit on Highway 101 is 80 miles an hour, and you believe it, you're going to be driving 80 miles an hour, but you're still breaking the law. See, but you're not doing it deliberately, you're doing it because you're ignorant, and you believe the lie. It's the same thing with a lot of people running for office. They swallow a lie because they don't do their own research. And you can tell them the truth, oh, you're considered radical. They don't want to hear it. A lot of people, we have a commissioner there, and he's a decent guy. His name is Keith Heck. Absolutely he told me personally, there's no such thing as Agenda 21, it's all conspiracy, he told me. And all he does is rubber stamp Cheryl Walker's agenda. He's just a bobblehead, like a 1 in 56 Chevrolet that just goes like this. That's all he does. I like the guy. The poor guy hasn't got a clue. But Cheryl Walker does. Yeah. So, now I'm going to talk about something else. What is Agenda 21? In Josephine County, in all the cities, they're building bike paths and walking trails around the cities. Are they doing that here?
Yep.
Yes, they are. Why are they doing that? Because the time, see, these people think 50 years ahead. They don't think like you and I. You and I think what's happened yesterday and what are you going to do today. They think about 20 years, 30 years down the road. So they're building a structure that may unfold to 30 years down the road and you don't see that. It's called like boiling a frog and putting in the cold water and turning the 1 degree up every hour. You can cook him and he won't even know he's being cooked. And the reason they're building bike trails and walking trails around it, because the time is coming in America, you won't be able to live in your land out in the country. I'm just going to tell you the truth. How are they going to get you off your land in the country? I don't know why, because they can't control you if you spread all over. You can grow your own food. You know, during the last depression in the 1930s, the depressions were in the cities. There was no depression in the country. The farmers in the country had food, they had milk, they had cheese, they had grain, they had everything. People in the city, they were starving in breadlines. Look at your History Channel. What did Stalin do when he was in power? He passed a law that the farmers have to turn over their food.
Yep.
And the farmers refused. So there's a video out on the History Channel, and I've got 6 copies at home. Cops went out to the countryside, put a gun to the people's head and shot them on the spot who wouldn't surrender food.
Yep.
You don't think that could happen here? There are cops here that never met Obama, they wouldn't obey. But they're good ones too, of course. We have like Sheriff Gil Gilbertson, our sheriff, he's a real decent guy. We have the best sheriff Josephine County ever had. So what are they going to do? They want electric cars. That's why it's called a green agenda. That's why they got electric cars. It's not working out too well because the battery blows up and it doesn't work too well. But why do they want to charge you for every mile you drive your car? They tried to do that 6, 7 years ago in Oregon. It didn't work out. People didn't buy them. Why did they want to tax your car so you can pay for every mile you drive your car? They don't want to force you into buying an electric car. Why did they want an electric car? Because there's no range. You can't go more than 50 miles and you have to pull over the side of the road. That's why they want bike paths around all the cities. So when they get you off your land, how are they going to get you off your land? Going to smoke you out? They could then your septic system. Of course, most people don't know that you can manipulate the septic system. The pH balance, we're putting lime in the septic system and manipulate the pH balance. Most people don't know that. And if there's a fire and you're out there and you won't get a building permit to rebuild, all for your safety, of course, but they care about you. They're going to come after your food. If anybody is grazing food, that's why they passed the food safety bill in Congress about 3, 4, 5 years ago, so they know all the food growers. They're doing it in Josephine County. They want to know who all the food growers are, so that when the time comes, because they're creating starvation of biblical proportions. It's all coming. And then when it comes, and they're going to say, well, the reason you folks don't, they're talking to the dummies, of course, the reason you have no food, because there are those people over there, look at all the food they can turn them in, and we'll take the food away, and then everybody can eat. What they want is equal starvation so they can control us all. And not because they care for you, they don't care for you at all. And you people gotta wake up. I wish I would be speaking here to 500 people, but unfortunately, that's the way it is. It's always a minority who makes a difference. Any questions?
Paul, are you aware of the pilot project that ODOT is putting on to tax mileage on your cars?
I know they want to tax mileage on your car. They haven't passed that yet, but I know they want to do that.
It's a pilot project, it's my understanding. I haven't had the time to really research it, but ODOT is going to do it. They're going to ask for volunteers to do a pilot project.
People to volunteer to pay taxes on the mileage of their cars.
Yes.
I don't think they're going to get too many volunteers except for the liberals in the cities, basically. They don't mind paying for anything.
I have a question on the food and the people going hungry in the United States. So we export so much food in this country. That's one of our main balance of payments in this country. And I don't see the people in this country going hungry. Can you address that situation, all the food that's going in this country through industrial agriculture?
Yes, I can. In San Joaquin Valley in California, you drive down I-5, you see signs all over the place. You cannot, they took farmers' water away. So they cannot grow their food. So what are they doing? They're importing food from South America, from China, from all over the world, which is not grown with the same standard as what we have. Well, what they do in the Northwest, in Klamath Falls, they took water from the farmers over there too, the Klamath Basin. All the same suckerfish or whatever it is, salamander, I don't know what's in that water. They want to, it's all a lie, of course. But that suckerfish in that water is more important than you and a farmer. And see, the problem we have, if I was a cop and they told me to shut that water off, I would tell them to stick it where the sun don't shine, and I wouldn't obey them.
Sure.
Well, I would lose my job, but you know what? I'd rather lose my job and be able to sleep at night than to sit there with a badge on my shoulder and shut your water off. I wouldn't do it. And if all the cops wouldn't do that, the whole thing stops. Listen, I was born during Hitler Germany, during the Hitler regime. You know who went door to door to take Jewish children away and ship them to Dachau and extermination camps? The cops. You know who put Jesus on the cross? A Roman cop, because he obeyed orders. See, I wouldn't do it. I'd rather lose my job. It's not important to me. But Gil wouldn't do it either. Our sheriff wouldn't do it either, because we have a good sheriff. And there's a lot of good sheriffs throughout the country. And by the way, that brings me to something. City cops are appointed and hired by the city manager, and only he can fire them. State police are loyal to the governor and the attorney general. Sheriff is the only one in law enforcement in the country that's elected by the people and loyal to you. And what they're doing is they're eliminating the sheriff's department throughout the whole country. We have a guy running in Josephine County for sheriff, and I want to tell you something. His name is Dave Daniel. He's a pure 100% Marxist. And what that man is going to do is destroy the sheriff's department and merge it with the city of Grants Pass. And if anybody's here from Josephine County, mark my words, I'm right to the money. Because what did they do, for example, Gil, they wouldn't give him any money. The guy has no money, so all his deputies left. So he's basically by himself with a skeleton crew. Now, during the budget hearing this spring, there was an agenda introduced to give $600,000 or $800,000 to Gil from the road department. They transferred the funds over to the chair from the road department, and I guess according to what I've heard, and I may have my facts wrong, is the state was going to replace that money. So we have a lady on the budget committee called Marie Hill. Now, she's a former juvenile director. So in other words, what's on the budget committee is your government employees that are retired. See, and what did they do? She said, well, we're not going to give Gil any money, and I'm paraphrasing her, because if we give money to the Gil, then people are going to think that we are washed with money, and people will vote down everything even more. So they wouldn't give him the money. He could have hired 5, 6 deputies with that. This because they're setting him up to make sure that Dave Daniel gets elected, and Gil doesn't get reelected. Now, Gil's got issues. He's not perfect. But he's got a heart of gold and he's a decent man. And he's my personal friend and I love the guy. Because he stood up to the feds. The other guy won't. What you're going to have is a police state, and deputies from hell. And he's a former city police, and he's a union man too, by the way. In bed with his own union. So who's going to run the sheriff department? Is the ASPI unions. The police unions. But you tell people that, oh, no. See, it's something that's, you know what's lacking inside us? Something called discernment. You know what discernment means? The Bible calls it righteous judgment. In other words, you know something without knowing why you know, you just know it. So that something tells you. I remember I bought a car once. And man, was I sweating bullets not to sign that contract. I had to hold my hand to sign that contract because something would let me buy that car. But my ego was involved. And I wanted that car because I wanted to feel important in that car because it was a fancy car. And you know what happened? I fell on my ass with that car because I didn't listen to my conscience. Something told me not to buy that car, and I didn't listen. And that's what we all must do. We all must listen what's inside here because the Holy Spirit will tell you if you feel uncomfortable with something doesn't feel right because something isn't right. And you have to believe in it. You may not know why. Doesn't matter. It'll be revealed to you in due time why. But you have to listen to that. That's why I knew Obama was wrong. I wrote an article about him 3 months before he was sworn in. Just go in my archives and you can read it. I forgot what the title is, but you can look on the Powell. I tell you everything that this guy's going to do, and he's doing everything that I said he was going to do. Because I recognize the Mark says, well, the guy's an empty suit. All he is a rubber stamp for the international bankers or the Rand Corporation or whoever's pushing his buttons.
George Soros.
Yep. Absolutely. See, and if we're going to save this country, I know that some of you are good people here. I know you are. And you have to run for office, and you have to run not being too radical. You have to kind of soften your tone a little bit to make sure that the paper doesn't pick up. If the paper picks up you're conservative, you'll never make it. But if you're liberal and you lie like hell, you have no problem. Every newspaper will endorse you. Look how they set up this guy in Nevada. What was his name? That Bundy guy.
Bundy.
Yeah. And the New York Times set him up. We had an article up today about this from Michael Kaufman from Maine. And they asked him a stupid question about blacks. And he said something stupid. I don't think he's a racist. But the guy was shooting his mouth off, and he didn't realize that they're going to take something out of context and give him a trick question. And he sucked him into this, and he fell for it, and boom. It was all over. The conservatives ran in 10 different directions from him. Now he's all alone. You have to be very careful what you say to these people because you're dealing with very subtle evil. And the most dangerous evil, there's a famous philosopher, I don't remember what his name is, maybe you guys can tell me, I think from a Roman Senate. And he says the enemy outside the gate is less to be feared because the enemy outside the gate holds his banner openly. In other words, I'm going to conquer your city, I'm going to rape your women, I'm going to steal your goods. You know what they want. But the enemy within your city gates will pretend to be your friend and carry a cross, and Jesus loves you as you are. And he stabs you in the back and you don't see it coming because you think they're your friend. That's what the senator said. I don't remember his name, Plato or Socrates or whatever his name was. I think it's right on the money. It's called subtle evil. And you have to use, Bible calls to put on your whole armor of discernment. And you have to discern evil because Jesus himself, the devil himself will come and say, Jesus saves. That's what the Antichrist is all about. He's going to come and fool most. And it's important to see these people. A lot of people in office that are doing wrong are not bad people. They won't listen. Like Keith Heck, for example, I mentioned him earlier. He's a decent guy. I love the guy. He started a gospel rescue mission in Josephine County. He did a lot of good. But people elected him because they think they're getting Mr. Gospel. Didn't realize the guy used to belong to the Socialist Party in Orange County, California, and he said that himself. In one of the videos, the Kennedy Forum, that he used to belong to the Socialist Party of Orange County, and poor guy's still a socialist, but he doesn't know. So any more questions?
Yes.
Thank you for coming to our county.
You're more than welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Sunny day. I think a lot of people here, we just don't have a lot of sunny days. I won't make excuses for them. They should be here, and I'm very disappointed that they're not. But my thing is, Huxley and Orwell, they both wrote books. Huxley wrote A Brave New World. Orwell wrote 1984. And they both had two different contrasts of how authoritarian governments would take control. Of course, Orwell says that government will take control by force with a jackbooted thug at your neck for the eternity. That's how fascism comes in. Communism is a little more insidious because, like Huxley, they come in with a warm blanket, come with a nice meal.
That's the most dangerous one of all.
That's the most dangerous one of all. We're here to do it for the children.
And for the seniors.
And for the seniors. We must help you by taking away your property because you can no longer take care of that. You're going to have to stay in one of those nice luxury hotels that we're going to make for you, basically the grandpa hotel.
They made a movie that's called Soil and Green.
Right, Soil and Green. And this is the kind of thing that I keep warning people about. You're not going to notice it because they're not going to come here aggressively. They're going to come here insidiously, like through the schools, through Common Core. They're going to come through AmeriCorps. They're going to come to your commissioners, and they're going to come here with that, well, you can't provide for yourself because we've taken all your natural resources, so we're going to provide grants for you.
They seduce you.
And seduce you. Well, the sheriffs are very much like that. You're very right about how sheriffs are the top law enforcement, and we're losing that identity and jurisdiction as the other previous talker was talking about. So and many of these sheriffs, they're now not functioning off of property taxes. Their county doesn't support their own sheriffs. A lot of these guys, they get money from the BIA or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service or BLM to protect their government
commission, and he would get all the money.
Right, and so my question to you, I guess, is how can we stop these sheriffs from being lured into taking this federal money when, like I said, 60–70% of their budget comes from the feds or the state?
Well, you educate him. Like Gil knows that the money that comes to him with strings attached, and he reads the strings very carefully. Like what are the globalists doing now? In all the equipment, you know what they did in Iraq? No, Iran. No, Iraq. What they did in Iraq, they had armored vehicles with a huge satellite dish on them. And the satellite dish puts out radiation, so if there's a big crowd there, it puts out a radiation, you still feel like it's on fire, so they can disperse the crowds. Now they don't need it there anymore, so they're giving these equipment to the sheriffs. Now why are they doing that? Why are they giving it free, by the way? All free. All compliments of Obama. Why are they doing this? Because they know the hard times are coming. People are not going to... See, you know what communism is like? It's like trying to squeeze a round ball in a square hole. It doesn't work. You have to you have to force it in there. And people are not going to voluntarily go in there because it's not natural. So what they're going to do, they have to fool you. That's why it's important that you get educated, educate your neighbor, make sure you got food put away, because hard times are coming. You haven't, Paul said what's coming down the road. You have illegals coming across the border with scabies and all kinds of diseases. Nobody's checking this. Where are your pastors? There was a town in the East Coast, I don't remember the name of the town, where they wanted to dump up 2 busloads of these illegals, and the whole town stood up, and they said, you're not going to do it here, including the city council. And they turned the bus around. We need to do that. Well, that wasn't Marietta. That's down in California. It was a town in the East Coast somewhere. I don't remember, but it's happening all over the country. People are starting to wake up.
The immigration problem, as you know, is an invasion into our sovereign country, violating Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. And that's just the U.S. Constitution. Some of the things that we can do is file criminal charges against these individuals for violating Oregon revised statutes for the immigration issue as well. But it seems you were from a communist country, former communist country, Can you please?
It's still communist, trust me.
I'm sure.
When a leopard changed its spot, it's still a leopard.
You just take the name off of it and change it. Could you please explain to some of the folks here about the comparisons from a communist country compared to what we're seeing now and how it approaches slowly seeping into our constitutional republic and changing us? Do you see the similarities with your former country in America as it's changing now?
Actually, what I can honestly tell you, there were some things that were better there than here. I know some of you will be shocked what I just said. But I'll tell you one thing about a communist country that I can remember as a child. I was 14 years old when I came here. I went to school there a couple of years, for 4 or 5 years, before we escaped. We didn't have gay pride parades. They were not teaching us in school that homosexuality is an alternate lifestyle. They never did that. I remember, some of the good things I remember is that there was a school teacher stationed in front of the theater, and they posted on a bulletin board what movies you were allowed to see. And if you were caught seeing a movie back in the